and welcome to the May 1st morning session meeting of the Johnston County Commissioners. We'd like to thank all of those who are here in person and thank those who are watching on the live stream on YouTube. As is customary for our meetings, we will open with a prayer and a pledge. I've asked Vice Chairman Patrick Harris to lead us in the prayer, and we have American Legion Post 270 from Smithfield to lead us in the pledge. So if you would, please stand.
Let us pray together. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we come to you this morning in humble prayer. Father, we're so thankful for the blessings that you bring to each one of us. We woke up in the greatest nation in the world this morning, and we're so grateful. Father, we ask that you watch over this meeting and bless us with courage and understanding and wisdom to make good choices and good decisions for the people of this county. Father, we ask that you watch over our military men and women, our first responders. Put your hedge of protection around them and bring them home to their families safely. Father, we ask that you bless this day and bless all in attendance and all that are listening. In Jesus' precious name, amen.
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 Face the flag. Hand salute. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ready, two.
If you would be seated. All right. The first item on our agenda is a Memorial Day proclamation, and our Veteran Services Officer, Robert Boyette, is here. I don't know if, Robert, you want to address that, or I've asked Commissioner Godwin to read the proclamation.
Yes, sir. I guess before you read it, I would like to make just a couple quick comments. And
That's a small piece of paper. It must be short.
Keeps me out of trouble. So, representing the 14 veteran service organizations and the 14,000 men and women in Johnston County, veterans that is, we would like to thank you for your support to the veterans and for the proclamation of remembering the fallen men and women who have served our country and our county. We'd also like to invite the citizens of Johnston County to attend a Memorial Day ceremony here in this courthouse in the Old Superior Courtroom on Monday, May 29th at 11 a.m. Again, thank you for the support to the veterans of Johnston County.
Thank you. Thank you, Colonel.
Mr. Chairman, I'll read the Memorial Day Proclamation, Johnston County Board of Commissioners, May 29, 2023. Whereas on Memorial Day, America undertakes its solemn duty to remember the brave Americans who sacrificed their lives for the cause of freedom and the security of our nation, and whereas we are constantly reminded that there are those in the world who would attempt to deprive us of our freedom and undermine our nation's very foundation, and whereas military men and women from Johnston County have served our nation throughout American history, with 248 Johnston County service members losing their lives in action in World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Gulf War, and the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. And whereas by honoring these proud soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen lost throughout our country's history, we renew our commitment to upholding the democratic ideals they fought and died to preserve. And whereas the citizens of Johnston County must never take for granted our privileges and freedom or forget to give thanks and honor to those who risk their lives so that we may enjoy our many blessings. Now, therefore, the Johnston County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim May 29th, 2023 as Memorial Day in Johnston County and urges citizens to remember the bravery of those who gave their lives so that their sacrifices serve as a reminder of the cost of our freedom. Adopted this first day of May, 2023. Mr. Chairman, I move this be adopted.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion, comments? If not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Proclamation is approved.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank each and every one of you again for your support to the veterans of Johnston County.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is approval or discussion of the agenda. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion we approve the agenda as stated.
As much as I'm late.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any other discussion? All in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda is approved. Next item is the consent agenda. We have, let me see if I can count here, 6 items on the agenda. First is approval of the minutes from March the 15th and 16th work session, strategic work session. Then we have the April 3rd, both the morning and afternoon meetings. We have some additions to the NCDOT system. And then we have a call for a public hearing for our fiscal year 23-24 budget. That is June the 5th at 10 o'clock here in our boardroom. We also have 3 budget revisions for the Sheriff's Department, Social Services, and the Finance, of which you'll see most of that is related to tax revenues. We also have appointments to 3 of our fire districts, Fire Protection District commissions for Brogdon, Nahunta, and Shoe Hill. And finally, we have our tax releases and refunds from March the 16th through April the 15th of this year. So do I hear any items that we need to remove from the consent agenda, or do I hear a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to clarify the call for public hearing on county budget for June 5th. It also includes additional evening meetings for budget discussion. So with that adjustment, I move the consent agenda be approved.
Second.
All right. Any other discussion or items to be removed? All those in favor of approval of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. All right, next up we have public comment. Anyone here to address any items that are not on the agenda, you can come forward at this time. You'll have 3 minutes to speak to us. Just a reminder to this board and to those folks watching that this is a time for the board to listen and not comment and exchange comments. And we will say that to avoid repetitiveness, if there's groups of people here, that we would ask that you pick spokesmen to come forward and speak to the commissioners at that time. We also ask that you maintain proper decorum and make all your comments so that they are in a civil manner. So if there's anyone wishing to speak at this time, please come forward and state your name and your township. All right, seeing no one moving to come forward, we will move on to the next item, which is our Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, their proposed budget for fiscal year 23-24. And we have Honorable Chairman there and former judge, a retired judge, and many things in Johnston County, sir, in many ways, Addie Rawls.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, to all the members of our board. I also have present here today with me someone you're familiar with, Mr. Steve Strickland, who is the vice chair of our Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. It's always a pleasure to come see you, and certainly I'm sure that I wish I could come more often, but business and other endeavors, being retired, sometimes delays my coming. We have presented to you our proposed budget for the upcoming biannual, which will be over the next 2 years. It would be affirmed in the following year. While we put the word out, we're still working with many of the same programs. Some of them are having to think outside the box in the implementation of programs after COVID, and I guess that's the language we use now, after COVID. This is where we are. Unbeknownst to me, in our initial letter to you all, we said that it costs approximately $122 per day to the county for each child that's in detention. Hence, each county is allocated a block of money from the state of North Carolina, in which we're required a 20% in-kind or cash match to provide services to prevent these children from going in the system. As a result of that, I thought it was still $122. I found I had gone up to $135, and just effective July the 1st is $150 a day. I'm not necessarily aware of many children who are sent to detention. We're certainly mandated to find our least restrictive means by which to deal with the children within our community. Typically, the ones that may go to detention may be some who may be who have committed crimes that are so egregious that there's no other result of it, or who continue to come to court and not obey the orders of their probationary sentence, at which time we use discretionary days. Typically, if it's a minor offense, 5 days. If it's a major, up to 14 days. And I been out of it for a little bit, so I'm not sure. But there were times that I did use detention, and I thought it was appropriate to use it at the times that I used it, because at some point you can say the same thing over and over, and it's convince these children that you can't continue on probation to do the same things you were doing prior to probation, and I had to get their attention. I was an attention getter, and I intend to still be an attention getter, but I try to work in many capacities to assist these kids. We have before you those recommended numbers. As you know, reentry closed last year. We were able to allocate those funds back to the programs at that time, and then we left some that we have now requested to be able to reallocate to the programs to continue with some summer programs and things. I want you to know there's a great partnership going on. One of our programs had 21st Century had an issue with transportation. Because of the new program that JCATS now have implemented, providing transportation, we're able to get some assistance, and we were able to set aside some funds that would allow the children to be transported to the program, which is in Selma, North Carolina, and back home in the evening. So we're fortunate to that. Unfortunately, a lot of times we allocate the money, everything's in place. For it to come down the pipe takes a minute sometimes, and then, but it's up, running, and they're now doing it, and the new program through JCAS is up and running, so we're very grateful for that partnership that we have. All of our other programs, these are all programs that we have funded. Youth Services, which does our Structure Day, and also they do our community service programs, and they have the component of New Directions, which is a guided growth program. Preparing to sow a teen court, while we have less children in teen court because of a mandate from the state, first-time offenders, to try to deal with it without them going through the court system to relieve the shortfall. Apparently, there is a big gap. During COVID, people stopped working for detention centers. So now they're making our staff, probation officers, and people like that that are within our counties go work weekends and evenings in those programs. So we're trying to get it all together and get it fixed so we can provide for that. In the meanwhile, they have upped the number of children they're dealing with who do come through the system with U-turn. And U-turn means you turn, you make good choices, decisions, we re-implement it. Then 21st Century have the 21st Century program for elementary age kids from Selma Elementary, but they deal with our court-referred kids in their middle and high school program and deal with that. And then the Exchanges of Mentoring program. So these are our recommended funding. We understand we are requesting from the county 112, which is what we've received from you, I think, for the past 2 years or 3 years. We're requesting that as a pending allocation. We know it's subject to your budget and what you're doing. That helps us meet our 20% match, continue to provide these optimist services, and take the struggle away from the programs. I've seen these programs do all kinds of things and fundraisers to help supplement what they're doing. One just had a popcorn fundraiser and raised $5,000. Now, Double Good gets the other $5,000, but that shows some innovation and willingness to work. I do know one of our other programs, Johnston Youth Services, Ms. Bolin has been here for a long time. She was downtown, now she's over off of Brogdon Road, not Brogdon, but Bookadary Road. One thing I note for her is particularly, she's very good with coming up with ideas of giving back to the community. We just had something, and I'm going to stop with that. We just had a program that was almost like a town hall with juveniles to find out from them what do they need us to do as a community. We're always going in to fix them, but what are some things that you need from us as a group? And she had 2 young people facilitate that. One is a young girl who is a student at Johnston Community College who has written 2 books. One is a book, it's called Dear Little Broken Girl. She wrote when she was in high school. The second book she's written is a children's book now. And she was one of the people there facilitating. And then Ms. Bolin's son, who is a teacher at Star Christian Academy, also appeared with her. He's in his early 20s. And so we wanted it to be driven for the young people, by the young people, to address the needs of the young people. And we're looking forward to doing some more of those throughout the time. So thank you for the opportunity to serve. Certainly I thank Mr. Hester, who allows me to be his designee on the board. And I appreciate what you do for the children that are often overlooked and maybe presumed to be certain ways, that when we get in and provide the services necessary to them, hopefully we unleash some great promise and possibilities for the children of Johnston County.
Thank you. Any questions for Judge Ross?
Judge Ross, I heard you say that the bed price has gone up from 122 to 150. If it's 112 a request, I assume that number came up before you knew that.
No, it has nothing to do with the 112, sir.
Okay, we'll make sure.
That 112 is just the county match that we have, and I'll submit this letter that we just received today. It says that new cost factor there. The 112 is just the county match that we have to run these programs and keep them going. We do receive from the state, and we have to have the vote for the recommendation of the state monies, $393,000.
Yep.
Which is a lot. I remember when it was much lower than that.
Yeah.
But we're grateful for that opportunity to continue to provide these services. And all of our people working with these programs have been there for years, and they continue to serve in that capacity.
Thank you for what you do, Judge Addy.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. I think at this time we're looking, do we need to look at a motion this time, or we do it with our regular budget when we do that in June?
I move that we approve the request as stated.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on this item? If not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next year. Thank you.
All right, next up, we have a presentation from Recovery Alive Incorporated, and we have Miss Tisha Temple here to speak to us today, and she has with her Miss Tasha Ellington here. So,
hello, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to be able to come and present on Recovery Alive, Inc. As the chairman just said, our COO, Tasha Ellington, is here with me today. I did bring some information packs. Can I hand those to you?
Sure.
Okay. I didn't bring enough folders, so
I tell you what, you'll hand them to.
Okay, so
Deputy
someone
Clerk.
won't
She
get a
can-
folder. But this is what is in the folder. All right, thank you. My name is Tisha. I'm a woman who's living in long-term recovery. What that means for me is that I have not found it necessary to use any mind or mood-altering substances since July the 26th of 2014. I am the National Outreach Director for Recovery Alive, Inc. I was recently in a position with Alcohol Drug Council of North Carolina for 4.5 years, and I am a certified substance use counselor for the state of North Carolina. Passion ministry. I just want to give a quick disclaimer before we start the presentation. There are some pretty graphic pictures that go along with what I will be presenting to you today, in the hopes of helping you better understand what our programming is all about. Recovery Alive, Inc. was founded in Johnston County, North Carolina by John Eklund in 2020 when COVID-19 opened the door for more online recovery meetings. Not all recovery groups were open to this shift, so Recovery Alive leaders created the organization to fill the gaps. Our mission: we are an ambitious and optimistic church-based response to human brokenness rooted in 12 steps, in Christ-centered 12 steps. Our purpose: Recovery Alive, Inc. constructs systems of care in recovery-ready churches. We offer comprehensive 12-step curriculum offered in person and online. That is where a change took place, moving along to that online system because of COVID and not being able to get out in the communities and meet. To help individuals and groups move through the process of recovery, we also offer early intervention comprehensive 12-step curriculums for teens and children. I want you guys to meet Eddie Crumpler. I do want to say that I have permission to use all of the pictures that I am sharing with you today. Eddie is an opioid overdose survivor. Because of loving men and women like Eddie, we offer harm reduction services. So Recovery Alive, Inc. provides the education and training beside the services that I'm sharing with you today. So harm reduction, including overdose reversal education and training services, distribution of naloxone kits, substance test kits, including fentanyl test strips, safer sex kits, including condoms and medication disposal kits, wound care supplies, and medication lockboxes.
Tisha,
Yes.
do you mind, could you take the microphone and move it closer to that corner so you can turn and look at the
Thank
monitor?
you. Yes.
Maybe stuck down.
Yeah, hang on. Yeah, hold on, we'll get some technical assistance there.
Okay.
That's a fragile microphone, so. That way make
you.
sure the folks watching on live stream can hear.
Okay. As I introduced Tasha, our COO, Tasha is a survivor of childhood sexual trauma. I just want to be able to relay the message of we provide education and training around church-friendly training resources that outline a simple plan to provide recovery for those with or without their church community, a network of support to communities throughout the country through recovery-equipped churches. I wanted to share this picture of Tasha because she found her freedom inside recovery meetings. She found that freedom through her relationship with Jesus. She lived most of her life not being able to share what was going on in her childhood. And because of programs like ours, she has found freedom from that. And not only has she found freedom, but she now works with teenagers and other women to be able to help them get through their own trauma. This is my husband. His name is Casey Temple, and he is a suicide attempt survivor. Suicide is the 12th leading cause of death in the U.S. In 2020, 45,979 Americans died by suicide. In 2020, there were an estimated 1.20 million suicide attempts. 21 years ago, my husband put a sawed-off shotgun under his chin and pulled the trigger. He has had 33 reconstructive surgeries. He has been sober from opioid and alcohol use for the last 9 years. He is a suicide, an advocate for suicide prevention. He has shared on multiple college campuses as well as many churches and other organizations. He just knows and wants to be able to share his story with other people so that other people know that they are not alone, so that we can talk about suicide before it happens, because this is preventable. We just have to remove that stigma to be able to do it. Recovery Alive does not just focus on drugs, alcohol, and or depression and anxiety. We are huge advocates for mental health as well. We do this through engagements with nonprofits, faith communities, and community coalitions to support people in prisons, jails, alcohol drug treatment centers, and mental health facilities. We support family members in their efforts to support persons with co-occurring substance use disorder and mental health conditions. And we provide transportation to recovery programs related to opioid use disorder and other substance use disorder and mental health treatment centers. This is me, homeless, heroin junkie, prostitute, convict. Today, I'm a survivor. Prison ministry, extremely close to my heart. I truly believe that that had a huge impact on why I am where I am today in my life. Access to recovery housing for people with co-occurring opioid use disorder and other substance use disorder and mental health conditions. Partnerships with reentry programs and employment-related services. March 1st, we opened the doors to our first Recovery Alive home here in Johnston County. It is located at 357 Holland Drive. We have 7 women currently living in our house. It is full. One woman moves in May 6th, and the next one comes in May 12th. May 6th, she is coming from a prison. We were able to contact her case manager, do the application over the phone, and offer her placement inside of the home. The next lady, who will be our 7th resident, who will move in on the 12th, is completing a 1-year treatment program and graduates on that Friday and is set to move in on that Saturday. The 5 women who are currently living in the home have all been connected to employment and are all successfully taking care of themselves. Our goal is to help them become self-sufficient. We do not run the house, they run the house. We just guide and walk alongside of them. They are women who are living in long-term recovery, and they deserve the right to be able to get an education, support for employment, which I want to give a shout out to JCATS because some of our women are utilizing their services, and even Penn Molding here in Johnston County has rearranged their set schedule to 7:30 to 3:30 so that JCATS can pick them up at 7 o'clock instead of them needing to be at work at 7. So people in our community are really just wanting and have become partnerships with us because they want to see people be able to do better, right? I can only speak from my own experience, and that's the best place for me to be able to share from my heart. Recovery housing offered me the opportunity to not return to prison. I have been incarcerated 3 times. I have been to jails and other treatment facilities more times than I can count on my fingers and toes. But 8.5 years later, because of a reentry program, because of recovery housing, because of support from the community and people like you on the board, we do recover. Not only do we recover, we stay recovered, and we help other people recover. This is our 501c3 information. So I just want to say to end what I'm sharing with you today, I'm extremely passionate about Recovery Alive. I'm extremely passionate about my relationship with Jesus. You do not have to have a relationship with Jesus to come and live in our house or to come to our meetings. That is not a requirement. I feel like if you hang around with me long enough, you might want to know who he is, so I do not shove things down people's throat. We just want to provide a safe place for people to know that they are surrounded by other people who know what it feels like to be them. Since Recovery Alive was founded here in Johnston County, we now have 32 active ministries throughout the United States. We have one in Ethiopia, one in Canada, and many in many other states, and we are growing on a daily basis, which is phenomenal. Our meeting here in Johnston County at Temple City Church on Friday nights, sometimes we have 300 to 500 people on a Friday night at a recovery meeting here in Johnston County, and a large part of that is because there are many other counties who are coming to us for that recovery meeting because it's not offered where they are. I'm very happy to say that we are having a pig picking tonight to celebrate another Recovery Alive program that is going to be starting here in Johnston County. And so I just want to say thank you guys for everything that you do. Thank you for recognizing substance use and mental health. And I guess to close, I'll just say I'm brand new at all this, right? So I don't know what the process looks like for talking to someone about funding, right? This is my first time, so I'm completely okay with saying that I don't know what that looks like. But if you would like to give me some guidance as to how maybe our county can partner with us to be able to help, I have an appointment set up June 7th through the 10th to go to a mission out in West Virginia, because we are interested in more things than just recovery houses and meetings. We are interested in opening up a faith-based mission, perhaps a community center for people to be able to take showers, fill out job applications, maybe do rapid Hep C test or HIV testing, just somewhere safe for someone to be able to come in and maybe get a warm meal. Also, maybe in the future, looking at that more of a 90-day treatment program here in Johnston County. When we help people get better, we reduce crime, we help families be reestablished, and those things are just important to us. So as we look into the future, we do a lot of fundraising on our own. I'm very proud of the people that have come alongside of us in this county and that have been very, very supportive. We continue to fundraise. We file for that 501c so that we can ask for help, so that we can be helpful to others. So any questions and or guidance that you can give me today, I would truly appreciate. Thank you guys for letting me share.
So I would say the first thing is see that man right there to your left to get it on the funding. Become good friends with him and the other man that's behind him on the next row. I would say that. No, the one over here, yeah, the one waving at you. Yeah, there you go. So, but I would say thank you, for what you do and Recovery Alive does for the folks in Johnston County, and continued success. Any other questions for Tisha?
Mr. Chairman, I do just have a comment. I had the opportunity to attend I guess it was a gala or banquet or whatever that we went to, and I had not heard of the program until then, and I was really, really impressed with the people that have been affected positively by this. It was just really inspirational to see all that and the work that has been put into it. So thank you for your interest in the community, and Ms. Ellington, thank you for all your work on this, because this is really changing lives. And so I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you for attending. Thank you.
Who won the car?
Who won the car? His name,
It wasn't me, I guess.
it was not you.
No.
Brandon Gray was his name. And when we called him live, when we drew his ticket to tell him that he won the car, he wasn't there. So we, Deacon Jones partnered with us, if you guys aren't aware, to help us raise some funds last year to open up the 2 houses. So there's a men's house that will be open before the end of June. We're hoping, we're actively looking for that property. But the fundraiser was to help with that. And Mr. Gray won. He lives in another county. We called him from his telephone number on the ticket, and he said, "You're calling to share great news with me, but I have something even better. My family and I would like to donate the car back to Recovery Alive, Inc." So it's truly a blessing. So Brandon Gray won, and he donated the car back to Recovery Alive, Inc.
Wonderful.
Great.
Very cool.
The only thing I would say is I would also love to see them partner, maybe have a meeting with Dr. Miriam Pearson and find a way to partner with our hospitals that are treating people that may be next steps for them. That's the only thing I would add.
I thank you so much for that. If I could just make comment back, I want to say that 2 of our women were awarded a scholarship through the opioid settlement funding, working alongside with her and Miss Kim Ratliff. So they recently completed peer support training and are today, tomorrow, and Wednesday completing the RAP wellness program. One has 18 months of sobriety, one has 16 months of sobriety. And so Johnston County is looking at creating a post-overdose response team, and 2 of the women who actually live inside of our home will be a part of that team.
Awesome.
Beautiful. And we look forward to doing even more work with them. The health department has been absolutely phenomenal.
Great.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
All right, anything else?
No, if you hadn't had an opportunity, you ought to ride by one Friday night and look at the parking lot over there. I drop off my kid every Friday night.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next item up is Health Department and a request for to adopt a fee schedule for their 2023-2024 fiscal year. And we have Mr. Steve Strickland to present that to us.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
Commissioners, I appreciate your time this morning.
Good morning.
The Division of Public Health requires public health departments to have their fees approved by the Board of Health and Commissioners on an annual basis. Our Board of Health looked at the fees before you last month and unanimously approved the fees. What I've got before you, just to go into a little detail, is 3 different divisions: environmental health, behavioral health, and preventive health fees. I'll start with the environmental health fees. We compare our fees to other counties, as you'll see across the way there. And just to give you a comparison of where we stand, and there's a multidisciplinary team that looks at this from the health departments. And this year, with our environmental health fees, we are not looking at changing any of the fees except for lab fees. Our lab fees change throughout the year, and what we're requesting that we do this year going forward is that we adopt a policy that says that we will charge the price that we're being charged or above for the lab fees, so we don't have to keep changing or getting approval of those fees. That's the only change we're making for environmental health. Any questions on that?
Any questions?
Perfect. And without going into all the detail of the hundreds of fees that we utilize in behavioral health and preventive health, I will tell you that our team looks at Medicaid, Medicare, private insurance prices that we get reimbursed for, and we go to round up to the next dollar, just to ensure that we bring in the revenue that we can to maximize that revenue. So that's what you've got before you for preventive health and behavioral health. Any questions?
Any questions on those? And you said, I noticed about 10 pages, that you said there's about 100 items on there. It looks like maybe more than 100.
that.
I was going to say, that's
Right.
that's
It
a
takes
lot.
us a little bit, but we go line by line to look to see what we're getting reimbursed every year. And then we round that up to match the reimbursement ratio we can get.
All right. Any questions? If not, I know this is the request to adopt the fee schedule. So is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I, serving on the Board of Health, this was reviewed very thoroughly by the Board of Health and approved unanimously. And I want to commend Mr. Strickland for his great leadership in not only the budgeting, but the entire process. And he really does a fantastic job in public health. And so we thank you for that. That being said, I'll make a motion that we approve the fees as presented in the board packet.
I second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman, while Steve is up here, I wanted to say one thing. Steve's involved in a lot of things where someone else typically is chairman maybe, but he is the unsung hero in so many areas, from JCATS to senior services to health department. And Steve Strickland doesn't get enough accolades he deserves. Thank you, Steve.
I 100% agree with that. Behind the scenes, doing a lot of work for the citizens of Johnston County. Thank you.
One of the tightest man in.
And he's a frugal budget man, I can tell you that.
That's why he's my hero.
And I'm proud of that.
I know you are.
Yeah. We were going to call you Ted Godwin Jr. Is there already a junior? Okay, Ted Godwin Jr.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, change of gears a little bit. The next item up is a multimodal transportation rail division. We have Jason Orthner. Did I get that close? Yes, sir. From the DOT. He's the DOT rail director. We're going to walk away from here being able to tell the difference between passenger rail, intercity passenger rail, commuter rail, freight. It's all on you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I'm aware of this microphone being sensitive, so I'll try to be as careful as I can. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Really do appreciate it. The idea today is to give you guys kind of an overview of what we do here at the rail division at DOT. We have one of the most robust rail divisions in the country. We're serious about what we do with our rail partners all across the state, and in providing freight and passenger services, and also overseeing safety on the rail system. So I'll get right into it. Our mission statement is the safe and efficient movement of people and goods on North Carolina's railroads through freight, passenger, and safety programs, supporting job creation and economic growth. Everything we do is tied to those activities. We take the mission statement very seriously. We've got 3 major programs, as I mentioned: freight programs, passenger programs, and safety programs, and we invest a lot of time and resources in all 3 to make sure we have a successful program and that we do the job of creating jobs and economic growth. The rail system in our state is a great asset. It's mostly privately held, as you may know. This is different than the highway system, where we have most of the highway system is a public facility. The rail system is largely privately held, and so most of what we do in our division is partnerships. We work with the 2 big Class 1 railroads, Norfolk Southern and CSX. We work with the North Carolina Railroad Company, who comes right through Johnston County. We work with Amtrak, and we work with 25 short line railroads across the state, which would be like the secondary road system. They basically are the feeder networks that come into that bring all the car loads to the Class 1s to haul over long distances. So great opportunity, and a lot of our mission is to keep this system functioning well, keep it intact, and do the things, the types of projects that make sure that we move the right amount of goods and people over this system. One of our most important programs is our Freight Rail and Rail Crossing Safety Improvement Program. This program has yielded nearly $700 million in private investment across the state. You can see that there's projects we've been doing all over the place, some even here in Johnston County. This program does track improvements, or working with the short lines primarily to do track improvements so they can serve their customers. It also works directly with customers who are looking for rail spurs. So we actually do partner with folks as they try to land new business along the rail line, and specifically around manufacturing. I'll go into a little more detail here, but we just landed a major rail manufacturing facility in Lexington. That's a new rail car plant that's going to be building the nation's rail cars there. I'll get into that a little more in this presentation. But the program also does a lot of work on rail safety, improving grade crossings, removing grade crossings, and building bridges and grade separation, things like that. And we're pretty proud of it. Our division also manages about $1 billion of the State Transportation Improvement Program. A lot of these projects are related to track improvements, double tracking, terminals, and things like that. Also grade separations and other types of safety improvements. and then building train stations as well. So we do have a major program here in delivering the state's rail infrastructure. We're currently working with MPOs across the state right now for the next version of prioritization, and those communities are looking at rail and their projects to see what might be done as we broaden the way we touch folks with this system. I want to pivot a little bit into passenger rail because some of the things that we're doing are really changing because of the funding available now in passenger rail that hasn't been there before. The space that our division operates in is called intercity passenger rail, and this type of rail is the type of rail that connects the centers of cities and towns together. There's usually longer distances between stations, and there's longer trip durations. And you'll have things like baggage and food service typical with that because of the longer trip durations. That's really juxtaposed against commuter rail, which is a very common term that folks have been talking about, which is more of a connecting and outlying areas into an urban center or a couple of urban centers. And this type of service historically has been for peak hour traffic times, trying to give people an alternative to congested highway networks. The station spacing is closer, and the trip durations are shorter. Usually the whole system length is shorter than an intercity passenger rail system, which goes over much longer distances. And then you've got something called light rail, which is entirely different than those two things because it is a closed, separate system from the national rail system, usually just in an urban area with very close station spacing, as close as a mile or less, moving people within that urban area. So we've had some great success in our intercity passenger rail program. The brand of our intercity passenger program in North Carolina is NC by Train. And right now we have two services, the Piedmont service, which operates frequently between Raleigh and Charlotte, and the Carolinian service, which operates daily between Charlotte and New York. Two of the most successful services in the country. Last year we broke our highest ridership record in 32 years with over 522,000 passengers in 2022. That was 13% greater than 2019, the year before the pandemic. So folks are really starting to lean into this way to move around. And then this first quarter this year, we broke every first quarter record that we've had prior with over 135,000 passengers. That's 30% greater than 2019 and 50% greater than last year. So folks are really starting to use the service, and I think one other important data point is here. The average trip length for our service is about 115 miles on the Piedmont and 250 miles on the Carolinian. So these are people that are going not short distances, but longer distances, and are using their time productively, whether it's work or entertainment or doing something else. And it generates, that last year it generated over 90 million passenger miles on our system because of those trip lengths. This is just a map of our current system. We have the core network that you see operating in Charlotte down through Raleigh, Cary, and Selma, and on up into Rocky Mountain points north. Also a feeder thruway service in the eastern part of the state, serving communities like Wilmington and Morehead City and that sort of thing. And then that is also in addition to Amtrak's typical services, long-distance services, which they provide 4 route services through North Carolina, Washington to Atlanta, and several services accessing between New York and Florida through North Carolina. A couple main things that we have here to report on is we're going to be adding another Piedmont this year because of the success of the program and the demand, and so that will be a 5th train, 5 trains each way between Raleigh and Charlotte with that service. And then we're also working with the city of Charlotte on changing the location of their major gateway station with a new station set to come online in 2026. Real quick on that, that's a project that our division managed directly all the way from concept to construction. We've built all of the rail side infrastructure for that facility. You can see it's right next to the Panther Stadium, right next to where the Charlotte Knights play, and just within a few blocks of the entire business district of Charlotte. Very different than the current location. It's about a mile and a half outside of that city center. So it'll be a very different opportunity for folks taking the train. They get right into the center of Charlotte with this new operation. We're working with the city on They have a major vision for the station itself as a destination. We're talking about a multi-use, multi-story facility that will house entertainment, commercial, residential, different types of transportation services, and all kinds of activity, and retail as well. I mentioned we successfully landed the nation's rail car, passenger rail train manufacturer here in North Carolina. It was a strong competition with neighboring states, but this puts us definitively on the map for manufacturing the state's trains, which is going to be important because as we look to this as being an opportunity for folks to get around, we're going to need some trains made right here in North Carolina to do that. This is probably my most exciting slide, is that we have a vision for North Carolina beyond just the services we provide right now. We've heard communities all across the state, from as far west as Asheville, from as far east as Wilmington and Morehead City, and every point in between, that they'd like to see, you know, how do we create a network of services so that folks can get into more destinations using NC by train. And so, fortunately for us, last year, actually, FRA established a new program called the Corridor Identification and Development Program. This is part of the bipartisan infrastructure law. And I think North Carolina might win for the most corridors submitted under that program. We wanted to make sure that everybody that was interested in seeing their community, their city, their town get connected to this system had a voice in this process. And so you'll see that there's a lot of corridors, 12 corridors. A couple of major corridors that are really critical, the Charlotte to DC corridor, because we need a trunk line for this new network so that folks they can reach the trunk line and get to places up and down the East Coast. But then also we've got Charlotte to Atlanta on there, working with the partners in South Carolina and Georgia. We've got, obviously I mentioned Asheville, I mentioned Wilmington. Through Johnston County here, obviously a lot of focus on these corridors to the east are going to have to come through right through here, right through Johnston County. So that means more intercity passenger rail service right here in the county. But we're very excited about this. We should hear about the selection of these corridors by September of this year. And what that does is that the federal government under the bipartisan infrastructure law provides $500,000 of initial study and seed money to take the project to the next level for every selected corridor. And it doesn't just stop this year. If any are not selected this year, we're going to resubmit next year under the same program. Just want to real quickly talk about this missing segment. Most folks have heard about a project called the S-Line. The S-Line is a project that basically creates a new connection between the Greater Triangle region and Richmond, Virginia, which is a hole in the current passenger rail system. Right now you have heavily congested corridors that are Norfolk Southern corridors and CSX corridors that operate on either side of this line. And what we're looking for is a new high capacity, high reliability, high speed connection that will connect a very mature Virginia system that has a lot of frequency and a very mature North Carolina system together. It's like an interstate, like 85 and 95 basically being joined together. That's the kind of frequency and type of facility that we need to connect these two major systems. So a lot of work been done on these already. We've done a lot between Raleigh and Charlotte. Virginia's done a lot between Washington, D.C., Richmond, the Tidewater area. What we need is the piece in between to connect the two. A little more about S-Line. We've been working on this project a long time. It's one of the most mature in the country. It has a completed environmental documentation for the whole 162 miles between Richmond and Raleigh, as well as 82 miles of roadway work that has to be done to make sure that those two systems operate together. And then we've been winning federal grants under the competitive discretionary process year over year. Really all through the process, with most recently last year winning the largest grant under the FRA's CRISI program for $58 million to take the design of this new facility into the reality of 30% and then beyond in engineering. Just a little bit more on this. You know, we have a growing region. Johnston County is growing significantly as part of the Greater Triangle mega region. There are 20 million people right now within these corridors between Northern Virginia, the Richmond Tidewater area, and then connecting into the various regions of North Carolina. Significant growth. And we expect that to grow to 25 million amongst these areas as we continue to see people move to our state as one of the greatest states in the country, or the greatest state in the country, excuse me. So this new route will be the additional capacity and over an hour in travel time saved between Virginia and North Carolina. And it will basically create a node here in the Triangle region for all those different systems to connect together, from as far west as Asheville, far east as Morehead City, and every point in between. And Johnston County is right there in the middle of it. So it's critical to further expand the NC passenger system. It actually provides freight network resiliency, because what it does is it takes the burden of passenger rail expansion off of those other corridors that are running north-south. Obviously, the environmental benefits and the efficiency of rail, it goes without saying, and of course, because it provides an opportunity for a non-vehicular based, trip, or at least on one end or the other of the trip, it does expand services, longer distance services to disadvantaged and underserved regions. Real quick, I'm on the last slide here. FRA looks at this corridor identification and development program basically as the beginning of a pipeline of projects that they'll take through a system that will allow them to come out and actually be funded and then enter into operation. So corridor ID is in that first phases of project planning and project development, but then there's the discretionary funding programs that basically get unlocked as your project gets selected, and those corridors get selected into the system. And lastly, we're dealing with a historic amount of funding for rail generally across all modes, safety, passenger, and freight under the bipartisan infrastructure law. And so North Carolina wants to be the most competitive state in the country. We've aligned ourselves and our vision, to really take advantage of these various programs, and looking forward to working with all the communities, including Johnston County, as we do it. Thank you.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Ortner?
No, I would say his presentation has impressed me. Jason, apparently you know what you're talking about. I know you've got Scott Saylor here to support you as well. Scott's the former CEO of North Carolina Railroad.
Yes, sir.
Glad to have you, Scott.
Yes, sir.
I did have a couple of questions. So you were talking about the 12 projects, and
yes, sir.
By my crude math, we've got 2 projects. We can go to Morehead and Wilmington that would come through Selma and then head to Raleigh. So I'm just going to say that's almost 20% of the projects that you have presented.
Yes, sir.
And as representing Johnston County, I would say that we are in favor of supporting that. I would also say that as we're balancing out the commuter rail option versus the intercity passenger option, this is very intriguing to me, and I see we have the mayor himself here from Selma, Byron, McAllister here to. I don't know if he wants to speak or add a little bit after this, but we would encourage the other towns that potentially maybe in the future there could be a stop somewhere in the Wilson Mills, Clayton area to help us get folks on into Raleigh and provide that service to get our folks where 60,000 of us or so commute to Raleigh, 60 or more.
Yes, sir.
I did have one question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Of the 12 grant applications submitted, have you got a guesstimate as to what might get funded?
Well, I wish I did. One of the things that FRA asked us, well, you're submitting 12 corridors. Did you really think about this? I said, yes, we've really thought about all these corridors. They're all, have the potential for significant success. They all meet the criteria that we're looking for, and they all meet together in the middle as a system. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out. Amtrak had previously identified both the Asheville service and the Wilmington service, which would come through here, as being strategic for their network as well when they release their map. So we think that there's probably a high probability that those services will probably see the light of day.
That's great.
Any other questions, comments? I did have one other question. So you had mentioned safety.
Yes, sir.
And I know as we're looking at our greenway trails and other things, pedestrian bridges alongside of those, is that part of this, or is there another bucket of money that we need to look to in the future to provide the pedestrian bridge access and continuation of our future greenways?
Well, Ryan Brumfield, who leads our integrated mobility division, is working closely with us on the pedestrian network that kind of surrounds how we're developing the rail network, and he has access to several funding programs and things like that would support that kind of initiative.
Thank you. Any other questions? I would offer opportunity to Mayor McAllister, if you have anything you want to say, add, support, come on up to the microphone, please, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Lauder. Thank you, Commissioners, for allowing me a moment to speak on this topic. Let me first echo Commissioner Godwin's comments. Mr. Orthner knows what he's talking about. In about 15 minutes of a conversation with him, I left with a headache. And it's amazing, absolutely amazing. But I do want to express the town of Selma's support for these efforts to expand rail through North Carolina, and our excitement particularly about a route from Selma to Wilmington that, again, would increase our mobility throughout this county, throughout this state. Beyond that, we are excited about the opportunity to really connect with our other city partners to not only bring more work into Johnston County, but also make it easier to get out of Johnston County for work as well. We really do appreciate all the thought that the commissioners are putting into mobility in Johnston County, and we really appreciate the work that NCDOT Rail is doing to make it a reality in Johnston County as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And for the board, I would ask, I will get each one of you a draft letter of support for this intercity passenger rail project, and take a look at it. If you're okay with it, I will go ahead and sign that before tonight's meeting and get that out, unless I hear any objections to that. Hearing none, I will get you a copy, and then if it's okay, everybody's okay with the draft, we'll get that out this afternoon. And I'll also reach out to our mayor and managers in Wilson's Mills, our administrator in Wilson Mills, and Clayton, to see if they're interested in also adopting a resolution of support. So again, thank you, Mr. Orthner, for your presentation. All right. Next up, we have our attorney, Jennifer Slusser, is going to present some proposed revisions to Chapter 4 Code of Ordinances regarding animal control.
Good morning, board members. You have before you some proposed clarifying edits and an added section to the Johnston County Animal Ordinance. I have with me this morning Chad Massengill, who's your Director of Animal Services, as well as Chuck Lively, who is our Shelter Superintendent. So all of the hard questions get to be answered by them. But what we were presenting to you this morning really are some clarifying edits. As we were going through the ordinance, we frankly noticed a couple typos that we needed to get cleaned up, and then we also wanted some additional clarification with regards to the keeping of stray animals and the surrender and those sorts of things. So there is an added section with that, which basically requires that a person report that a stray animal has come to them, to the Animal Services Division, and the purpose of that requirement for reporting is to help reunify an animal to its rightful owner, and if that animal cannot be reunified to its rightful owner, that it is then placed for adoption. The other section of the ordinance is the revised section 4.17, which also gives some additional time before an impounded animal is deemed abandoned in the case where there's a law enforcement action or a medical emergency. Typically, the time is 72 hours. This, in those circumstances, would extend it to 120 to give some additional time for reunification. But those really are the main revisions to the ordinance. We've not gotten a lot of feedback from the public with regards to these proposed revisions, and we don't think that they are controversial. it was sort of assumed in the impounding animals section that, that lost and abandoned animals were to be reported, and then some things have occurred, and we decided, let's make it extra clear that that's the expectation. So that was the point in the revision. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have, and of course, we've got your animal services team here as well.
Any questions?
Now, I don't have a question, but I have a comment, if I may, Counselor.
Yes, sir.
We talked about Steve Strickland, unsung hero, which he is, but Chad Massengill is also one, because he has to operate, because it's like children in school, and people with their animals are very, very, as they should be, love their animals. And Chad and his staff do an outstanding job.
Yes, sir,
I've
they do.
adopted 1, 2, 3 over there, and so they have to, at the call of the night when someone calls to come to get an animal, but they do a yeoman's job over there.
Yes, sir, I agree. We have an excellent animal services team in Johnston County.
I have a problem with some of this wording. I understand and agree with the spirit of the law, but the letter of the law concerns me. It shall be unlawful for any person to refuse to surrender any stray animal to an authorized representative of the Johnston County Sheriff's Office or Animal Services upon demand of the representative. I don't know. It strikes me as somewhat arbitrary, and it shall be unlawful for any person or organization to accept any animal that is stray or where the owner has no proof of ownership. Our dog died last year, and a farmer in Wilson County gave me a beagle. I don't have a proof of ownership, other than spending $1,500 at the local veterinary treat for heartworms, but you know what I'm saying? I'd hate to be made a criminal because of what we've put in place here in something like this.
Well, I would remind the board that our ordinance is enforced civilly, not criminally, number one. So the likelihood that in a circumstance such as that, that there would be a criminal charge is zero, because the ordinance is not enforced criminally.
I guess the unlawful part is what bothers me.
But the other part of that is that there are oftentimes, and I don't want to misspeak, so Chad can correct me if I'm wrong, but oftentimes what will happen is a stray will come, a cat comes up to my front porch, and I feed the cat. All I have to do is take a picture of the cat, send it to Chuck and to Chad. They put it into the system, and then if it's Mr. Harris's cat and it's lost, and he contacts Animal Services, they can then reunite. And really, that is the point, is to make sure that we have the opportunity for reunification. And if I choose to keep the cat after I've reported it, and the 72 hours has gone by, then I can work with Chuck and their office, and then the cat's mine. So that's really the intent of the section, is to make sure that a lost animal that's picked up by somebody gets back to the rightful owner. That's really what we're attempting to do.
I will support anything that would make Chuck and Chad's job easier.
This would make their job easier.
And we're trying to keep it
If you'll come to the microphone.
We're trying to keep it from that lawful state, because a lot of these people are not reporting these animals, and larceny of animal in North Carolina is a felony. So when they fail to report it or make any mention of it, then when law enforcement does get involved, when Mr. Harris says, hey, that person's got my cat and had it for 2 months, that's what we're trying to avoid,
right,
is to keep that from happening.
Okay.
Well, you know what I'm going to add? I'm going to call on Adam and our POI team to, this is something I didn't even know until we discussed this, that was the way that it should have been done. And so I don't think that everybody knows to call animal control when a stray cat wanders onto their porch. And I see it all the time when people move, their cat goes right back home, and people call me and they're like, what am I supposed to do with these cats? And so I think it would be a good just public information piece to let people know, A, about this change, and that it is, a felony, and that this is how you do it if that were to happen, because I don't think the public knows that that's the way to do it.
Yeah. We can get with Adam and do another piece. The way I understood this is it's just really making it unlawful for you to take in a stray animal and keep it without telling anybody, because likely there could be a family that's out searching for their pet. And so we want to make sure that that family gets their pet back if it's if it's theirs, rightfully theirs. And so I think it's a good idea.
And the thing is let us know, send us a picture of it so we can post it on our Lost and Found board at the office. So if you come to the office looking your pet, because that's where people come to, they can at least see it's there, and then we can get them back to that animal.
Yeah.
A lot of times people are holding these animals at their homes for several days and then get them to a rescue group, and they're getting out of the county and out of the state, and the owners never know where the animals go to.
Right.
And we're trying to avoid that.
Sorry, Megan. Do you have a Lost and Found Facebook group?
It's on our county website.
Okay.
I'm
All right,
good
any
with
other
it.
questions?
I'm good with it.
All right, do I hear a motion to approve the proposed revisions?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we approve the provisions proposed by the county manager and the Animal Services Division.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No.
Thank you.
Motion carries. All right, anytime Ms. Farmer comes up, there's a lot of words here, but she's gonna present to us on the Central Johnston County Regional Wastewater Treatment Facility Improvement Sole Source. She has a request for us.
Yes, good morning. We have about 90% completed the design for our Central Johnston County Regional Wastewater Treatment Facility Improvements Project. That is improvements at the existing wastewater treatment facility. You may recall over time our intent is to decommission that plant. Unfortunately, that's not a quick process, so we'll continue to operate that plant for at least another 15 to 20 years. And in the meantime, we have some necessary improvements for preliminary treatment and grit removal, and in addition, our SCADA system at the plant site. So, as I said, this project is well under design, and we would like to sole source several components of this project in order to maintain standardization and consistency. These will be the same components that will be installed, the same manufacturers that are installed at our new wastewater treatment plant that is under construction. This equipment is our grit removal equipment, our grit pump and cyclone classifier equipment, our Ethernet switches, and our SCADA software. You can see the manufacturers that are proposed on here. For the grit removal, it's UTEC head cell. For grit pump and classifier is Wimco. For Ethernet switches, Hirschman, and the SCADA software is Ignition. We also have a recommendation letter from our engineer on the project. I'll be happy to answer any questions on that.
Any questions
I
for Ms.
do,
Farmer?
Mr. Chairman. Will these improvements last through this decommissioning process, you think?
Yes, these should last for the lifetime of the plant.
Good.
All right, any other questions?
Did I understand the other day when we were during the agenda review, once we do this, there are no more modifications that have to be done for us to reclaim that 2 million gallons a day that we were going to have to deregulate this plant?
Right,
They
so
were
we'll still
deregulated.
have a treatment capacity of 9.5 million gallons a day at that plant site. It'll be a matter of what our permit allows us to operate and then the transmission facilities to that plant.
So if we're bringing 4 million from the new facility,
Mr. Brown, could you lean a little closer to the
9.5, we're going to be at 13.5 million gallons a day.
If we operate that, currently our permit will allow us to operate that 11.5.
Right.
So we've acquired the additional nitrogen in order to allow us to go to the 13.5. So we'll be working with the state to modify our permit once our new plant's online and when we get to the point where we need that. Of course, we are also designing an expansion at the new plant site to take that one from 4 to 8 million gallons a day. So
Right.
it'll be a matter of timing and where the flow will be coming from as to which option we go with, how we utilize that 2 million gallons a day and that nitrogen accordingly, whether we use it in the old plant or move it to the new plant.
Because we're going to have to continue to buy nitrogen credits
That's
if we,
right.
okay, all right.
All right, any other questions? All right, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve sole source items reference for the Central Johnston County Regional Wastewater Treatment Facility improvements, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And while I'm here, I would like to mention real quick that we have scheduled a stakeholders meeting for our draft wastewater allocation policy at the board's request. This meeting will be May the 11th at 3:00 p.m. in the Johnston County Land Use Center conference room. We are asking for input from stakeholders, and the draft policy is on our Public Utilities website on the home page in red right on the front there, and also have an opportunity on there for stakeholders to email any comments they have directly to my attention, so we'll be able to incorporate that. We'll have time to do that. They can do it before the meeting, of course. We'll explain the policy more during that meeting, and then we'll still allow an additional week after that meeting for people to give us input before we come back to the board.
What was the time for that meeting, May 11th?
It's at 3:00 on May 11th.
Thank you for that. That takes one item off my list of board comments, so thank you. All right, next up we have our Tax Administrator, Jocelyn Andrews, with the Delinquent Tax Collection Report.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Before you, you have the March collections report. As you can see, our ad valorem collections are rolling. As we approach the end of this fiscal year, we have about $1.4 million left to go. But if you stop and look at comparison of year to year, we are $12 million over what we had expected last year at this same time. So county's growing. We're trying to stay up with it, and needless to say, staff is getting into a tough time of year to collect, but we were pushing hard to finish that last to get to 100%. So I'll be happy to take any questions on this.
Any questions from Ms. Andrews? No. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, manager reports and comments. Mr. Hester? No report. All right, board reports and comments. Mr. Braswell? Commissioner Godwin?
A couple things, Mr. Chairman. My wife was at UNC Health Johnston this morning in Clayton getting cataract surgery, and I shout out to that team up there. They did an outstanding job. But Adam and his team last Friday got me in a situation where I could attend this meeting virtually if it came to that, and I was prepared for that. And I just want to say kudos to him and his team for helping a Neanderthal get through that process. But we tested it Friday afternoon, and it worked fine. The other thing
I've heard something about making chicken salad out of something.
Yeah. I started to mention this when Judge Eddie Rawls was up here, but this past Saturday, the Smithfield chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity held their second annual 1911 Bike Fest. And that's a group of men who participate. This was a fundraiser, and they spend their endeavors with mentorship, scholarship, and education, typically in high-risk communities. And I just want to say what an outstanding job they do. I'm sure that interfaces with what Judge Eddie Rawls does as well, and maybe keeps some of her clients from becoming her clients. But it was a great ride and a great group of people. I've never felt so welcomed in a ride in my life. They looked out for the old man and made it through.
Good. Chairman Harris?
No, sir. Thank you.
No, sir. Christian Braswell? All right, I did have a few things, and one Chandra addressed for me on the allocation policy meeting on May the 11th at 3 at the Land Use Center. The other was, what I had was the rail resolution, but our letter, so we've got that one coming. That you should get an email on that to take a look at. A couple other things that we have coming to us are the MPO decision that we have to make. There's a meeting on Wednesday. The DOT has invited representatives from Campo. They have also invited the mayor/chairman, managers, and planning directors from the county, Clayton, and Archer Lodge, the three entities that make up the folks who have to make the decision on that. So that is Wednesday, and we'll give you feedback, provide the board with feedback on how that meeting goes on Wednesday. The other thing that I had on here We talked about allocation policy and a couple of things that's still on our issue for us to look at. I know we've got a public comment period, but to continue to take a look at that and how we want to allocate and when we want to begin allocation of that. And then the final thing on my list is with potential building projects coming up, we've had some internal discussion about a training session workshop on construction delivery methods, which would cover our classic, I think we're all familiar with the design, bid, build. It'll take a look at construction manager at risk and also design, build process where we can evaluate those processes and become familiar with them. We had interest from several of the towns in joining in that. They have building projects and would want to do those. So I'm going to, Rick, if you would you kind of take the lead on looking at a time and a place for that to get together, and we can talk about folks that can come from both the construction side of things, the architect side of things, and actually I think we can probably have Chandra come and talk about our experience, and then the public schools, Brooks Moore, could come and also give us on their decision-making process on that, but something to help us be able to look forward and plan to how we can make best use of the tax dollars of our Johnston County citizens. But that's all that I have.
I got one other thing,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Let's go.
But I forgot to mention one thing. It needs to be mentioned. Kevin Richards of Team Flow was instrumental in making that bike event happen, as well as the North Carolina Highway Patrol and the town of Smithfield PD. They escorted the group through town, and everything flowed great. I just wanted to give a shout out to those guys.
All right. We do have a need for a closed session. I hear a motion.
Yeah, I move the board go into closed session for the purpose of consulting with an attorney employed by the board in order to preserve attorney-client privilege pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A3, to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industry or other businesses in the area pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A4, and for the purpose of personnel pursuit to NCGS 143-318-11A6.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to go into closed session for the reasons stated. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And we will not take any action at the close of that closed session. So, all right. With that, we'll take a break for a few minutes to clear the room, and we will enter into closed session.